Crystal Palace have beaten. No, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound fair. They've smashed, they've humiliated, they have outclassed Manchester United by 4-0. And right now, we're going to take a look at it. We're going to break it down for you because this was a cracker. I think the biggest compliment that we can pay Crystal Palace and the biggest critique that we can give Manchester United is the fact that this wasn't a surprise. People should have seen this coming. Crystal Palace under Oliver Glasner are a well-working, well-suited and really well-put-together outfit. The three at the back formation is giving them a solidity that I don't think they had previously. Nathaniel Klein moving into that centre-back role has really brought a dynamism to that right-hand pocket. And then when you think about them going forwards, Daniel Munoz and Tyrick Mitchell bringing that width and dynamism going forwards with their stars, Eberechi Eze and Michael Olise bringing that star power, that flair, that bit of shine to their performances. And I want to touch on Eze for a moment because he was a revelation. 14 dribble attempts, 9 of them completed. 9. Obviously, it was a massive match high in terms of dribbles, but when I tell you that the entire Manchester United side managed 4 dribbles, Eze managed 9. I mean, if that wasn't an example of the difference in quality between both of these sides, I don't really know what is. The average positions do a perfect job of summarising how offensive Palace were while also maintaining how defensively resolute they managed to become. The high line, or the high-ish line I want to say, held by Anderson allowed them to push that little bit further up. The width coming from those two wing-backs, of course, but it was the interplay through the heart of Manchester United's defence from those two star players that I mentioned previously that really drew my attention. The defensive organisation from United was nowhere to be seen. And I've got to point out a couple of players in Eriksen and Casemiro who just failed to really hold that defensive line whatsoever. It's clear that the tactics employed by Erik ten Hag are just not working, and whether the players are giving enough effort remains to be asked as well. But Casemiro put in an all-time shocker of a performance for me, costing one of the goals according to these stats, but for me, I think he's culpable for at least 2, maybe 3 of the goals. And when we take a look at some of the statistics, it's just embarrassing for Manchester United. That's not to take anything away from Crystal Palace, and that's not to say that they didn't deserve the win. But the performance that United put in was nowhere near good enough. Palace with 18 shots, 10 on target. Manchester United managed 2 shots in the entire game. And when I tell you that their first shot on target was actually in the 51st minute, you know it was just a shocking, terrible performance. Crystal Palace deserved all of the plaudits for this game because they stopped Manchester United playing. They were aggressive, they were dynamic, they were able to really pen Manchester United in, control the ball and really work the ball to a canter. It was a fantastic performance that needs to be given the praise that it deserves. And I think a lot of people will focus on how bad Man United were, but Crystal Palace were sensational, and Oliver Glasner is doing something really special there. The revolution is well underway. You can see how good they are defensively, you can see how good they are going forwards, and it's starting to make for a really well-working outfit. 2 things are going to happen when we take a look at these goals. The first thing is we're going to see how good Crystal Palace are going forwards, the quality that they bring, and how explosive they are in certain phases of play. The second thing we're going to do is see how bad Manchester United are. And trust me guys, trust me, they are really, really bad. And we're going to be focusing on one individual in particular, and I'm sure you all know who it is, but we are going to be talking about Casemiro. Because I've seen this, and I think this video should perfectly illustrate why Casemiro should not be playing football at the highest level anymore. I just don't think he can do it. But I won't say any more on that. Let's go through the goals and hopefully you'll agree with me and see why. So this is the first goal. This is in the build-up to it. Michael Olise currently has the ball, and we need to remember the context of this goal, which is that he received this from a throw-in. And what this did is it took out 1, 2, 3, and there's Højlund over there, so 4 attackers. And then we need to focus on the midfielders. So we have 1 here and we have 1 here. And then we need to talk about the back 4. Now the back 4 is comprised of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Johnny Evans, who is currently out of picture, Casemiro, and Diogo Dalot. Now, when we think about back 4s and we think about the real defensive solidity of a side, this, guys, is not defensively solid whatsoever. I'll just do that again just to really show. I mean, what is that back 4? Look at that. That's horrendous. We'll move it on a little bit further because I want to focus on this man to begin with. I want you to see what Casemiro decides to do because it is staggering. Now, Elise shrugs off Eriksen and then is able to go forwards. Casemiro decides to jump from the back 4. Now remember, he's a centre-back in this game. He should be here. He's playing as a centre-back. Johnny Evans is moving into position, and you've got Diogo Dalot here. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, for whatever reason, has stopped running backwards towards his position. But let's just take one thing at a time, shall we? Casemiro has decided that he wants to jump onto Michael Elise with a little bit of aggression. But we need to remember that he's a centre-back, and I just don't think this is the correct move to begin with. But we move it on, and Casemiro actually ends up... I'm going to take it back for a second, because Casemiro, if you see this, it's really difficult to do with still images, but Casemiro actually doesn't make a challenge. He just runs past Elise, almost as if something strange has happened. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's really strange, because Michael Elise actually doesn't move or do anything. He shields the ball with his foot here, if you can see it, and Casemiro actually doesn't make a challenge. He runs past Michael Elise and then falls over. Now, I'm baffled by this scenario. This entire phase of play has thrown me through a loop because he doesn't do anything, and it leaves a gaping hole for Crystal Palace to attack into. And then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 players nearly onto a back 2. It's baffling. I mean, this is truly schoolboy stuff. Not to mention the fact that he's not tracking back as quickly as possible. Michael Elise then drives forwards. He's allowed to get towards the edge of the box before he rifles a shot home. It's just nowhere near good enough. But it's fantastic play from Crystal Palace. Like I said earlier, direct. They are cutting. They are dynamic. It's really refreshing. Let's talk about the second goal, because it's that man again. Casemiro is here and he's currently about to lose the ball. Now, I wouldn't normally have an issue with this. From a defensive point of view, it wouldn't normally be a problem. But if we take a look at the wider context of the game, where are we? We're on the halfway line. Now, if I was a Manchester United fan, I would ask, why is my centre-back on the halfway line? Because this is your right-back, this is your right winger, this is your midfielder, this is another midfielder, and this is your centre-back. Why? Crystal Palace end up winning the ball back, and it progresses in a rather negative nature for Manchester United. Dalot has realised that the progression of the ball has been lost, which means that he needs to start to recover. Casemiro has lost the ball, which means that if Crystal Palace play quickly, they are able to get a massive advantage, and that's exactly what happens. But this all stems from the fact that Casemiro is once again out of position. He's in midfield for whatever reason. You got Mateta, who drives really well at Johnny Evans, who doesn't do well enough to stop the challenge. He tries to square him up. Mateta just breezes past him. I think Johnny Evans is concerned about giving away a red card in case he takes him down because he might be last man. Nevertheless, it's far too easy for Mateta to go past, and he blazes it past Onana. Now, the third goal. This is actually nothing to do with Casemiro. It's got nothing to do with him whatsoever, but it's brilliantly worked by Crystal Palace because I want to focus on two things. Number one, the cross that comes in is fantastic. Wharton is brilliant and he whips it to the back post. Now I want to focus on this man. I I want to focus on Anderson, because what he does is just run on the back of Dalot, who does not notice. And it's the reaction from the Crystal Palace players in comparison to the Manchester United players that I really want to pay attention to. So the ball gets played back in once Anderson is able to then play it back across. I want to look at this. 1, 2, 3 Crystal Palace players are all goal side of every single Manchester United player. You have 1 who's not paying attention, 2, 3 players who are not giving it anywhere near the credibility, the awareness, the attention that it deserves. Crystal Palace factually just wanted it more, and it needs to be given a lot of credit. They were fantastic in this game. I know I'm talking a lot about how bad Manchester United were and they were terrible, but Crystal Palace were brilliant. They wanted it, effort, and we criticise a lot of teams in mid-table for being on the beach, for not wanting to play, for not being aggressive enough. They were, and they were brilliant. Now, let's forward it on finally to the last goal. And yes, it's that man again. It's him. It's Casemiro. And this might be the worst of the lot, but we'll see. So Mateta is currently chasing the ball. The ball was played through from midfield down the line. Casemiro is currently in a race with Mateta, and you're thinking that surely he's going to be able to do something, but he just loses out. Now, I have sympathy from him here because he doesn't have a lot of options. He can't really pass over to the left-hand side or his right-hand side. He can't really square it back to Onana because of the run of Mateta. So what's your option? You've got to, in my opinion, just blaze that over into Rosed. You've got to get rid of it. Instead, he dallies on the ball, and what happens next, I can't quite explain. The image isn't particularly good enough, but I want you to pay attention to this. He looks over his shoulder and sees that he's being pressurised by Munoz. He knows that Mateta is on his left-hand side. And what he does next is something that will probably forever make me question, because I just don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. We forward it on, and Munoz is about to play in a challenge. And what actually happens is nothing. Casemiro just moves his foot away. He just doesn't try to do anything. Munoz takes the ball, and Casemiro falls over. It's almost... if I didn't know any better, I'd say he was willing the ball to have been taken off him. He doesn't try to shield it, he doesn't try to protect it, he doesn't try to kick it, he doesn't try to knock it back off Munoz. He just leaves it. And it's baffling. The ball gets played over to Elise, and of course it's a fantastic finish that I think Onana should do a little bit better with. But take nothing away from the strike, take nothing away from Crystal Palace. They were sensational. Penny for your thoughts if you're this man, because he must be wondering what's going on, and he is not exempt from critique either. I just think there were far, far bigger issues for Manchester United in this game. But as I said, Crystal Palace were brilliant. As always, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.